Guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. The zombie economic collapse is finally here. If you guys have watched me for the last couple of years, you've heard me at various points talking about how inflation was going to be here, and I talked about that about 2-3 years ago. I got a little bit of pushback, people saying, you're kind of over-exaggerating. Well, the inflation's here. And it's not that I'm some genius. I just listen to people that are smarter than me and try to pass some of it on to you. And one of the things that they talked about at the time is with inflation roaring ahead, they're going to have to raise interest rates to calm down the inflation. Except it's not really working, if you've not noticed, because all the inflation is because of government spending and not our spending. And so we're getting the interest rate inflation, but we're not the ones doing the spending. The government is. So it's not working. It's the price of everything's going up, but it's not slowing spread of our spend. It's not slowing the spend or spending of our government, and thus everything's getting really expensive, and we're running out of money, and the inflation's still going crazy. So when that happens, though, and the inflation jumps up, these companies that have been surviving either on venture capitalism, free handouts, or very low interest rates that can just keep borrowing to pay salaries and keep stores open, and hopefully they get through the economic hard times, they don't make it. The hard times are still here. The economy still kind of sucks. And now with the interest rates, they can't borrow money for free, basically with the quantitative easing. And so now they're in trouble. And this year is when it really seems to be hitting. So we're going to go over that first. And then, I don't know if you guys know, but the Babylon Bee is a parody website. And they were one of the ones that got banned off of Twitter. And Elon Musk, I guess, liked Babylon Bee, and he was following them at the time. And he noticed that they got banned, and they interviewed him. And it was one of the reasons why he decided to buy Twitter, so that people could still talk. Well, they included me, their news site, their not parody site, Not the Bee, included me in one of their articles, and I thought that would be fun to read. So I will read that at the end of my news segment here, because it does have something to do with financing and dating, and it kind of boils all into one. I think you guys will find that interesting. From Miami Times Online, a retail apocalypse occurring with 3,200 store closures, and this has just been updated as of last night. They said some 3,200 brick-and-mortar stores, including many in Florida, have closed so far this year, and more are expected to close through the remainder of the year, according to a new analysis. Retail data provider CoreSite noted a 24% increase in store closures over last year as the retail industry adjusts to a shift in consumer shopping to online outlets, inflation, and bankruptcies. The 30-store closing, some or all of the locations range from anchor stores such as Macy's and other mall apparel stores to drugstores and discount stores selling items for around $1. Now, when we talk about big businesses collapsing, these are corporations that usually have stockholders. They usually have big investors. They have a lot more money, and they usually have larger margins and can survive economic strife much more than small businesses, much more than the mom and pop shops, because mom and pop shops don't have the ability to borrow money. They don't have as many corners they can cut, so to speak. Usually a mom and pop shop only has a couple of employees. They can squeak by on the rent, and if they get into a hard bit, once they've burned through their savings, that's it. They don't have these big investors. So when they're talking about a 24% increase in store closures, they're talking about the retail industry, the big box stores. These small mom and pop shops are not going on the radar. They're not being accounted in this. And so more than likely, the small mom and pop shops are going to be failing on an even larger rate. And the reason why this affects everybody is it's because of that. It's kind of that snowball rolling downhill, and it starts gathering size and momentum. Most people work for small business here in the United States. It's not the big corporations. It's government, and it's medium to small size businesses. So as the small size businesses start failing and the larger ones start struggling, people either need to go work in the government, which is not good for the economy, or they're out of work. And when they're out of work, they stop spending. Then other businesses start to struggle. Then they start to fail. Then those people that work there stop spending. And before you know it, we have a calamity on our hands. I think we're going to be looking at a calamity when all of this is said and done, because we're just starting 1 year into the higher interest rates, and they're not even that high. I mean, let's be honest. Yes, 5 to 7% is high, but in the 70s to tame the inflation, which is not as bad as it is today, they had to jump up to like 15 or 18% interest rates on houses and loans and things like that. The other difference, too, is I do remember being a young man and my parents giving me money to put into a savings account at a bank. And this would have been like the late 70s, early 80s, when I was around 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. I remember getting 8, 10% on my money while it sat in the bank, in the getting interest on my savings and my savings accounts. I didn't have a checking. I almost said checking account. I didn't have a checking account then. But in my savings account, I remember getting 8 or 10%. And my parents sitting me down having a lesson with me of, hey, this is why it's good to put money in the bank instead of just keeping it on hand, and then someday you want to invest it. And they gave me the lessons. I just looked, and even though my bank is charging on some credit cards, not mine because I don't really use credit cards, they're charging 22, 25, 27, 30% on credit cards, and the inflation rate's gone up, I'm still making nothing, like literally 10 cents on savings accounts that have quite a bit of money in them. So they've done this to try to keep people to make them spend money instead of saving it, but the problem is they can't afford to buy anything. So it's a lose-lose across the board. They say a lot of this year's closures are related to bankruptcies of chains that have been in trouble for a while, like Rite Aid and Rue 21. Neil Saunders, managing director of Global Data, told CBS Money Watch. We're also seeing several retailers like Family Dollar take action to weed out underperforming locations. Family Dollar led the retail reshuffling by closing 620 stores, including at least one in Florida. The list of closures also indicates traditional mall stores, including clothing retailer Rue 21, which announced in May it would close all 543 of its stores as part of its Chapter 11 bankruptcy proceedings. That includes all of the casual women's and men's apparel chain stores in Florida. Other stores have closed in Florida include 23 Walmart health centers and 5 Express stores. According to CoreSite, here's just a few of the retail closures so far in 2024. Now, I'll read through this list, but there is something I want to add. Brick and mortar stores closing. Best Buy is closing 9 of its stores. Macy's, malls are shutting down. Clothing stores are shutting down. So if you're like me, I can go on a website and I know my measurements because I'm a dude. And I can order my jeans without trying them. And I don't think I've ever purchased a pair of jeans that I said, these don't fit at all. If I get boot cut or loose or whatever, they come and they fit pretty good. I can't remember the last time I tried on a pair of jeans before I purchased them. Women can't do the same thing. So what's going to happen is if these stores start closing down, more and more people are going to shop online. And where do they traditionally shop online? Well, one of the big ones is, of course, there's Etsy, there's eBay, but one of the biggest ones is Amazon. But the problem is that Amazon sells mostly things from overseas. You can't try anything. Most of the brands now that they put as promoted items or are the least expensive ones are absolute crap. They're not good quality. And then on top of that, it's almost impossible to find something that's American made or that's a major brand here in the United States. So it's going to force more of our business overseas because we're going to end up ordering it through Amazon. And then, of course, that's probably made overseas. And it doesn't touch a mom and pop shop, nor does it touch Macy's. So these businesses can't get a small percentage to have an open store. And so there's less money moving around in the market. I think ultimately this is the beginning of a very, very hard fall for us. And if you looked at what the video I did the other day on the petrodollar, it's kind of similar stuff. That our dollar is going to lose so much strength that you put this in with the interest rates, in with the store closings, in with the amount of people that are going to get laid off. 10,000 more in Florida because of the minimum wage hike. We're going to be in a lot of trouble, and we don't make anything here. So the stores closing: CVS Health, 315 stores; 7-Eleven, 272; Rite Aid, 165; Walgreens, 77; Macy's, 51; Burlington, 39; Foot Locker, 36; Best Buy, 9; Abercrombie and Fitch, 22. And that does not add up to 3,500, or 3,200. So there must be a lot more that they're not including here. Consumer spending remains solid. Now that's a problem. If consumer spending remains solid, that's a problem. If you ask me personally, that's people that are spending off of debt, or they're going into debt, and they're buying things they can't afford. There was a report that came out that shows that America is in the deepest debt hole it's been since 2008. They say consumer spending remains solid, rising 0.2% in April, according to the latest available government data, but confidence may be declining according to University of Michigan surveys of consumer sentiment. The consumer confidence dropped to 69.1 in May, down from 77.2 in April. They said some retailers made strategic errors. Saunders told CBS, for example, Express, an apparel store specializing in workplace attire, made too little effort to adapt when people began working from home during the bug. Saunders said in a research note, Express said it would close 100 to 500 stores as part of its bankruptcy restructuring. So they go through and explain how many more of these stores are closing down locations. Of course, a lot of this also is crime. When you look at these stores that Walmart's pulling out of in high crime areas, same thing with CVS and Walmart, they're just saying, you know what, we're losing too much product. It's costing us too much to stay in these crime-ridden areas, so we're pulling out of those as well. Well, this goes on to explain right here, zombie companies. And this is, I know I've talked about this a couple of times over the last couple of years, but it's getting worse. This is from a week ago. The rise of the world's debt-laden zombie companies. The so-called zombie companies could soon be facing their day of reckoning, with due dates looming on hundreds of billions of euros of loans they may not be able to pay back. They're going to get crushed, Valens security manager director Robert Spivey said of the weakest ones. And here are the key takeaways from the AP analysis. Now, if you notice, this one they're talking about, instead of the dollar, they're talking about the euros, because this is going to affect the West too. This is not just a United States thing. It's going to affect Australia and Western companies in Europe. It's going to affect anybody that pretty much is a westernized country, I would say. They say zombie companies are commonly defined as companies that have failed to make enough money from operations in the past 3 years to pay even the interest on their loans. Their numbers have swelled because low interest rates for years allowed companies to pile up plenty of cheap debt, only to be whiplashed by stubborn inflation that has pushed borrowing costs to decade highs. AP analysis found their ranks in raw numbers have jumped over the past decade by a third or more in Australia, Canada, Japan, South Korea, the United Kingdom, and the U.S. Companies that run Carnival Cruise Lines, JetBlue Airways, Wayfair, Peloton, Italy's Telecom Italia, and British soccer giant Manchester United. Many zombies lack deep cash reserves, and the interest they pay on many of their loans is variable, not fixed, so higher rates are hurting them right now. And we fall into this crazy place where our government and the powers that be that try to control and manipulate everything say, well, we need to bring interest rates up because inflation is crushing us. It's crushing the average man. It's crushing companies. So we need to bring interest rates up. And then as they start bringing it up, companies that should have failed a long time ago, but our stock market has been falsely inflated since about 2008, after that big crash of '08, it kind of came back all of a sudden out of nowhere, and it shouldn't have. It's because quantitative easing and 0% interest meant companies that were really in trouble, that should have failed way back then, just started borrowing money. And with a 0% interest rate, they could make the payments, and now they can't. And so now the crash is coming. Now all the past debt that they owe, it's coming due. And the same thing is for our government. You know, our government has to pay interest. What happens when China and these other countries stop buying our debt? We buy it from ourselves, but we have to tack on the interest. We can't afford the interest. Right now, there's something like $1 trillion of interest we owe on the $35 trillion of money we've borrowed. We owe $1 trillion every 100 days. And by next year, it'll be every 90 days. And the year after that, it'll probably be every 60. We are in a downward spiral. They say, why are zombies a concern for the economy? As the number of zombies have grown, so too has the potential damage if they're forced to file for bankruptcy or close their doors permanently. Companies in AP's analysis employ at least 130 million people in a dozen countries. Already, the number of U.S. companies going bankrupt has hit a 14-year high, a surge expected in a recession, not an expansion. Corporate bankruptcies have also recently hit highs of nearly a decade or more in Canada, the UK, France, and Spain. For the first few months of this year, hundreds of zombies refinanced those loans as lenders opened their wallets in anticipation the Federal Reserve would start cutting in March. That new money helped stocks of more than 1,000 zombies in AP analysis rise 20% or more in the past 6 months. But many did not or could not refinance, and time is running out. Now, remember, this is from a week ago. If our market, we really can't afford to lower interest rates because the inflation hasn't cooled yet. And so now, again, we're stuck in that hard place. We either lower the interest rates again, which makes all these companies borrow, makes our government spend more, inflation skyrockets, and you think your groceries are bad now, wait till you go through another, inflation of 10 or 20 or 30%. And our government can afford to do that, and these companies borrowing the money can afford to do that temporarily, but we certainly can't afford that. There's going to hit a point where you can't afford your groceries anymore. And they know this, and so they say, well, we have to keep the interest rates up. And what they're doing is they're dragging everything out. Really, they should slam the interest rates really high, and let everything fail and fall apart and let it all come crashing down, and then we restart. That's what they did in the 80s, the late 70s, early 80s. But they won't do that right now. Why? We got an election coming up, and they want President Potato Head still in power. And so they're doing everything they can to drag this out. And I guarantee you, if somehow they accidentally or allow Trump to get in the White House, they're going to jack the interest rates and the economy is going to crash, and they're going to blame it on Trump and the Republicans. Mark my words, it'll happen. And if they don't, well, it's still going to happen. It'll be under President Potato Head, and they'll blame him as he shuffles off this mortal coil. He'll go down as the scapegoat for everything. Let's see, what else do they say here? Through the summer and into September, when many investors now expect the first and only Fed cut this year, the debt-hit companies will have to pay off $1.1 trillion of loans, according to AP analysis, 2/3 of the total due by the end of the year. Some experts say zombies may be able to avoid layoffs, sell-off of business units, or collapse if central banks cut interest rates soon, though scattered defaults and bankruptcies could still drag on the economy. Even if they do that, they're still dead men walking. Like, they're still done. All we're doing is dragging this out. And I don't know who said it, but it's kind of, I think I said it actually. I think this is something I said in one of my other videos. It's like you have a cut, and instead of dressing the wound and taking care of it and dealing with it, you just slap a bandage over it. It's dirty, it's infected, but you slap a Band-Aid over it. And then when that starts bleeding through and getting really bad, and maybe it's gangrenous and it smells awful, you just seal it up again. It's still bad, but we just hit it underneath a new bandage, and then another new bandage, and another, and another, and another. Eventually, those bandages have to come off, or the arm's going to fall off. We're only making the issue worse. and we're kicking the can down the road. And if people are not prepared for that, they're going to get themselves in a lot of trouble. You know, I went kind of crazy, and I bought this metal building. I'm building my house. I bought this land because I kind of felt that we're overdue for this. I've seen this coming for a long time. Not that I knew what was going to happen, just that the winds of change are like we're in the longest bull run market of all time. Things have to correct, and they keep artificially not letting the market correct. So we're in this everything bubble. The everything bubble has to correct. It will correct. Except the longer we put it off, the worse it's going to be. And so I took out a lot of my investments and things, and I'm putting it in land in this building, and eventually I'm going to put it in the men's retreat if I can get some decent land. But the land prices haven't corrected. They're getting worse. Housing hasn't corrected. It's getting worse. Food hasn't corrected. Labor hasn't. Nothing's corrected. It's just going up and up and up. I'm waiting for the correction. I don't know when the correction will be, but it's got to come at some point. There is no soft landing to this. They keep saying they're going to do it, but what happens when the market corrects and all of a sudden you'd have traditionally a 10 or 15% unemployment rate, which is what you need, and you need to kind of go into a recession so everything can reset. The things that are going to break and collapse, and the things that aren't are fine. You know, Apple's got $100 billion in cash. They'll be fine. What happens when normally you'd have 15% unemployment rate, but now you've also got free handouts and a ton of these loans or a ton of these jobs going to illegal migrants? What happens when those Americans that normally would be getting those jobs can't because people fresh off the boat are getting it? What happens when the people fresh off the boat don't get to work? They're going to need handouts, or they're going to start robbing people, or they're going to go home. It's going to get bad. Crime will get bad. You know, crime was bad in the late 70s, early 80s. It was really bad. So they're going to keep doing this, and they're going to keep trying to fix this, but they're not going to be able to. They say for its part, Wall Street isn't panicking. Investors have been buying stock of some zombies and their junk bonds, loans rating agencies deem most at risk of default. While that may help zombies raise cash in the short term, investors pouring money into these securities and pushing up their prices could eventually face heavy losses. If rates stay at this level in the near future, we're going to see more bankruptcies, said George Cipollini, a fund manager at Penn Mutual Asset Management. At some point, the money comes due and they're not going to have it. It's game over. They say, how do stock buyers hurt zombies? Now, this is where the venture capitalists and the people that have all this free money want to put it into something, and so they buy companies they shouldn't. They say the dangers of companies piling on debt has been warned about by credit rating agencies and economists for years as interest rate fell. But it got a big push when central banks around the world cut benchmark rates to near zero in the 2009 financial crisis, and then again in the 2001, 2021 during the bug. It was a giant, unprecedented experiment designed to spark a borrowing binge that would help avert a worldwide depression. It also created what some economists call a credit bubble that is spread far beyond, with low rates, that has also enticed heavy borrowing by governments, consumers, and bigger, healthier companies. What set many zombies apart was that their debt was not used to expand, hire, or invest in technology, but on such things as buying back their own stock, thus artificially inflating the value of the stock. And so a lot of people that are buying that stock are way over leveraged. There are companies right now that their P/E versus their stock price is at 50, 100, 200 times earnings. That is insane. That isn't like that. No company is ever going to make that money back. So you as an investor are paying way too much money. Eventually that comes due. But anyway, right now, everything is way, way expensive. And now they're saying, well, there's the U.S., and this is from February, a couple months ago, and this is back before Janet Yellen and the idiots over at the Federal Reserve. And in the Biden administration said, well, we're probably not going to do an interest rate drop, maybe one this year. They say the U.S. now has an 85% chance of recession in 2024, the highest probability since the great financial crisis, economist David Rosenberg says. They said highlighted a relatively new economic model that has proven to be more timely than the yield curve indicator. Our conviction that this recession has been delayed but not derailed is still running at a high level, Rosenberg said. I won't read down through this, but he's basically saying, look, we've put everything aside. We've pushed it all back, but we haven't gotten rid of it. And the odds are we're not. You can see here how kind of everything looked. This is the dot-com bubble, 99 to 2001. You can see where it is. This is 05 to 09. You can see where it is. And then if you look at the kind of where we are today, it's just as bad, if not slightly worse. They said the full-time model predicted the soft landing we saw in 2023, but is now that it's saying for 2024, recession probabilities are highly elevated. The model calls into question the growing narrative that the economy is about to pull off a soft landing or no landing scenario this year. Of course it's not. They're betting against everything. So what does this mean? It basically means, guys, we're going to go into a recession. A lot of you may end up losing your jobs. The price of things may continue to go up. It's not going to be good for the economy. Save your money. Save your money. Make sure that you have the things that you can afford. Don't go into debt for this stuff. But if there's things you can afford that you think you need, do it. Make sure you have your backups of water and food and things like that in case something catastrophic happens. But if you need little things, like me, if I was like, oh man, I need to grab one more monitor for work or something or other, you might as well get it now. It's not going to be any cheaper. And gosh knows if we get into a conflict somewhere, we may not be able to get all our crap from China anymore for a while. So just be prepared for something coming up. And what does it mean in the dating market? This is where we'll get over into the fun portion of this video. So this account over on Twitter, Women Being Awful, I follow them, they follow me. They got about 165,000 followers. The profile says, women are amazing, just not these women. And they make fun of women very much like I do, except they do it on Twitter instead of YouTube. So it's a good follow. Anyway, the runner, the person that runs this account, messaged me. They said, hey man, like you're in Babylon's, not the Bee, Babylon Bee's, their news site. One of your tweets was in there. I said, oh cool, I'll check it out. And this is actually kind of a good point that I was making the other day. This is from Not the Bee on their hot takes. This woman has a thought for the guys who want traditional wives, and I've got a thought for her in return. And this is written by Joel Abbott. He said, may I present women looking to gain social media clout by talking about something vaguely based while driving around in an expensive car. He says version 3,921. And this comes from Alpha Fox, who's got a very large following over on Twitter. He says, women are waking up and realizing a trad wife is a win. Taking care of your man, kid's house, and actually being a mother is not a bad thing. He's right, but I want you to listen to what this woman says that she's looking for, and then realize it's a trap. And you're going to see a lot more of these traps as the economy gets worse, more of these women get laid off, they're used to a certain lifestyle, and they're not going to want to give that up. So instead, they're going to look for Captain America, Chad Thunderstroke, that's got all the money, but he still is worthy of dating her. And you can see, again, she's an attractive woman, so she's going to require the alpha male.
Men are like, we want a traditional woman. We want a woman at home, taking care of me, taking care of the kids, cooking, cleaning, doing all this. And women are like, have done the feminism, they've done the 9 to 5, they're all broke, they're unhappy, they're like, why are we working so hard? This sucks. And then they're like, okay, we accept your terms. And then men are like, okay. And then we're like, okay, so that's going to take a lot of money to have this life. So are you going to be a provider full time? Are you going to give me and the children the lives that we want? And then as soon as women turn it on men, and except men are like, oh my gosh, you're just all gold diggers. And then it's like, so what do you want from us? There's no winning. Yeah, we do want to be at home with the kids. And yeah, if we do that, you have to provide, sweetheart.
So she says her last line is, you have to provide, sweetheart. There's a problem, though. There's a problem. She's not looking for just provisions. We know that. You're going to tell me, now let me see if I can, she's got her eyebrows done. Look, she's got very expensive nails. She's got her nails done. She's driving around. The only car I know of that has glass all the way back here that sounds like this when you accelerate.
Yeah, if we do that, you have to provide, sweetheart.
She just accelerated during that last part. Did you hear much? I didn't. You know why? Because that's a Tesla she's sitting in. Now, maybe it is. Now, this is the full glass roof. I don't know if that means it's a Model Y, a Model 3, a Model X or S. I don't know. But this is an expensive, electronic car. So she's got the nails and the eyebrows done. And do you think she's going to settle for just providing? Of course not. She wants the lifestyle that she had when she was working, and she wants you to provide that as well as for providing for everybody. So then when guys are like, well, you're a gold digger, because it's not about providing. It's about, I also want the nails, and we got to eat to the nice restaurants, and you got to make sure that I have this expensive car, and you got to pay for $500 for my skin cream and my makeup and my Botox and all that crap. That's when guys are like, this isn't working for me. But the last line is, you have to provide, sweetheart. That's the important part. He says, so if men want to partner with them as homemakers and child rearers, they need to hustle to provide for that family. You don't have to be a millionaire. You just need to be willing to work and put your own wants aside in order to get your family what they need. This duty and sacrifice is one of those core defining trials by fire that every man must endure if he wants to be called a man and not a boy. This lady is digging at real issues, the millions of serial manlets running around out there today who are more interested in themselves than sacrificing for a family. He said, but here's the counterpoint, and it's one that the ladies need to think about and seriously, then go yell at the politicians who got us all into this mess. Mike Dizzle replies, the problem is this was organized decades ago. Bringing women into the workforce and making them feel empowered was the best trick ever played. Now everything requires two incomes, so you have to make double the median, or your girl works, period. All they did was raise prices. Feminism arguably caused the worst inflation in history. And if you look at salaries versus the cost of living, it's true. Salaries stagnated because all of a sudden women came into the workforce, and the employers said, well, now we have more available people, so we can pay everybody less because we're not in such high demand for workers. And over time, that put us where we are today. Someone else says the real torpedo in the side of this ship is civil marriage was no-fault divorce. I mean, man, the destructive effect that had on family stability in this country is incalculable. And that's another point that we need to remember and talk about is, sure, men will be providers, but what, and this is where he included my tweet here. I said, you must provide, sweetheart. And then a footnote, you must make deep six figures, still be 6 feet tall and athletic, even while working 60 hours a week, and able to meet her emotional needs whenever she deems it necessary, or she'll cheat and leave you. I should have also put in, while taking half your crap. You see, that's the problem with this whole game, is all the things that men were supposed to get out of this, which is the wife and the kids and the stability and the home. We're fine with that contract. Yes, there are some guys out there that say, oh, she's a gold digger. But those are the young guys. Those are the young, like, angry red pill guys. Guys that have worked a little bit, we understand the game, which is if you're going to give me kids and you're going to be a stay-at-home mom, and maybe you're going to teach the kids at home and be the educator, because I don't want them to go off to family or public school, I know I have to provide for the family. But there's a difference between providing for the family and having her still say, I have these needs. And the needs are Starbucks coffee every day, and the $100 nails once every couple of weeks, and the eyebrow stringing and whatever else they do. You don't understand how expensive that stuff is. There's so many women out there that should be saving that don't. He says the men have a point too, ladies. Men need to take responsibility. Women must stop being deceived. He said, did you know, as recently as the New Deal, we had policies that protected a family wage for men and protected women in the home. This changed because the family is bad for business. This managerial elite disliked the traditional bonds that rooted people in deep meaning, tradition, and responsibility. They wanted economic widgets that can be plugged in at will whenever needed. If you aren't a father or a mother, you are an interchangeable Lego piece that can be used by the machine at a whim. Pushing for women in the workplace was the ideal, note the bold phrase that is key there, no-fault divorce and a breakdown of tradition were purposeful developments toward that end, and many women went along with it. Feminism wasn't about freeing women. It was about changing their boss from the husband and the home and the family unit and the community to being independent and being fine with baby deletion and working and paying taxes and destroying the family unit, because then you're easier to control. A man will fight very hard to protect his family. How hard will a man fight to protect nothing? He won't. He won't, because he understands no one cares about him. A woman will fight tooth and nail to protect her children. What if she doesn't have any children? Then she's more concerned about, her nails, her makeup, and where she gets her coffee from and what's going on social media. And if you don't believe it, just look what's happened in the last 10 years. He goes on and talks a little bit about how here's the ultimatum: we aren't widgets, we're humans made in the image of God. And he talks a little bit about relationships and God's will, which is get married and stayed married. And I agree with that, but the problem is no-fault divorce, and the laws are not conducive to that. And he said until men and women realize that it is a both and solution, and that is the only solution, the world will continue fracturing into an image of hell. And I do agree with him. But we can't change it. We men can't change it. Because we're the bad guys. We're the awful pigs. We've got news agencies and the media and everybody else saying that it's patriarchy and we're evil and we're the bad ones and all the things. And so when men say, hey, this isn't fair, this is a bad deal for us, everybody pretty much collectively says, who cares? We don't care what you want or what you think. So we're not going to get a say in this anymore. It's been taken out of our hands. Until things get so bad that women say, you know what, I don't want to work anymore, and I want to go have babies, and I want to have a family, and we need to get rid of these laws that are scaring men off from marriage and families. This isn't working. Until women do that, it's not going to come around. And guess what? Women aren't going to do that. Because they've been brainwashed to assume all men are worthless and pigs and a-holes and all the things, and they're going to stick with that, because to change their mind is to take deep meaning and deep thinking and analysis of where we are and what's going on. They'd have to listen to other people's opinions, and they'd have to take accountability for their bad decisions. And we all know none of that's not happening. It is what it is. And if you don't believe that, I've got this last story for you. It's 2 minutes, but it perfectly marks out my point when it comes to this. A woman sues her employer for making her do no work for 20 years. Just imagine getting paid for doing nothing, not just for a day or two, but for a full 20 years. Sounds like the stuff of dreams, right? Well, not exactly if your name is Lawrence Van Wassenhoeve, who was paid her full salary for 20 years, but was made to do no work whatsoever by her employer. The French woman has filed a complaint against her employer, telecom giant Orange, and accused them of moral harassment and discrimination at work. According to her complaint, she was suffering from hemiplegia, which results in severe or complete loss of strength, leading to paralysis on one side of the body. It was recruited as a civil servant by French Telecom in 1993. Due to her condition, she was offered a position adapted to her medical needs, and she worked as a secretary in the HR department until 2002. The company was later taken over by Orange, and things changed when she requested a transfer to another region of France. Where's the rest of the story? Oh, there it is. Continue reading right there. She said while it was approved, her new workplace was not adapted for her needs, and an occupational medicine report confirmed that the position was not suited for her. However, Orange continued to employ her and paid her her full salary for the next 20 years while she was not assigned any work. So she couldn't do her job, and the new workplace was not adapted to her needs, and instead of paying gosh knows how much money for the new workplace to be adapted for her, just her and uniquely for her, they said, you know what, we're going to pay you your salary, but we're not going to require anything of you. Now, if you're somebody that has those struggles, either A, you're now getting paid nothing because they couldn't adapt the company for you. So they're just paying you to be a human being. Free money. Either that, A, or B, you're bored, you need more responsibility in your life, you need something else to do, they're not assigning you any work, so you decide to go out and get another job. And then you double dip and you get twice as much money. One for a job you don't have to do and one for a job you're doing. But that wasn't good enough for her. And did she sue after a year or 2 years or 3 years? Of course not. She waited 20 years. So she collected a paycheck from them for 20 years. Then she decided to sue. Because now she just wants a bigger payout, obviously. So even if a company tries to do the right thing and says, we can't accommodate to you, but we're going to keep paying you your old salary because we're the good guys here. We want to help you and give you a comfortable, easy life. So we're just going to pay you as if you did the work, but we're not going to pay you. She says, no, not good enough. She says this was the company's way of pushing her to quit her job. If they wanted you to quit, they would have stopped paying you. They would have said, you're not doing any work, we're not paying you anymore, the end. But they were paying you. The woman further alleged that in 2015, following her complaint to the government and the high authority for the fight against discrimination, a mediator appointed by Orange was mandated to resolve the situation, but things didn't improve at all. They said it had done everything to ensure the woman worked in the best conditions possible. The company also claimed to have taken the woman's personal, social situation into account and to have paid her the full salary continuously, plus several non-refundable aids. And that wasn't good enough for her. So my dudes, let me tell you. Do you think these women are going to come around when the economy gets tough and these businesses start laying off and everything starts falling apart? Do you think these women are going to be prepared? Will they have saved? Will they be prepared? Will they be ready for the economic changes? No. Will they be reasonable with corporations? No. There was a coffee company in, I want to say, Portland, Oregon, and the workers, it's a small company, it only had 3 stores, and they said, we can't pay you anymore. And so the workers all got together and they decided to start a union. And the day the union was to go into effect, the company said, we're closed. We're permanently closed. You're all laid off. We're closed. And the workers were like, shocked Pikachu face. What? How did this happen? It's because you demanded too much. You demanded too much. And there's nothing left. You destroyed it. This woman waiting 20 years to sue a company that was kind enough to pay her, even though they couldn't accommodate her. And she turns around and says, not good enough, I'm suing you. These women saying, oh, you want us to be trad? You want us to be trad wives? Do you think they're going to say, oh, well, he works really hard and he's a good provider. And yes, I have to make a lot of sacrifices, but we're happy, and I have the house and the kids, and it's still going to be a good life filled with love and family. No, of course not. This girl, just like I said, she's going to need Chad Chaddington. You must make deep six figures, still be 6 feet tall and athletic, even while working 60 hours a week, and able to meet her emotional needs whenever she deems it necessary, or she'll cheat and leave you. And how do I know that? And you don't have to agree with me. Maybe you don't. But if you look at this girl's face, she's pretty. This is a pretty woman. Yes, she's got the fake up and the fake lashes and the eye. Okay. But she's got good bone structure. You can usually tell if someone has good bone structure. She's pretty. She's young. She's obviously successful. She does well for herself. Do you think she's dating the plumber down the road to pop out a couple of kids? No. She's going to want the business executive that's making deep six figures. And the problem with her is the guy she wants to sleep with, the guy she wants to party with, the guy she wants to, the Chad Thunderstroke to blow her back out, he's good looking. It doesn't mean he has money. So when she says, I expect all the things, he says, no, I'm just smashing. F off. And then she finds the good, successful guys that say, I can provide that for you. And she looks at him and says, ew, no, you give me the ick. You're not Captain America. They're never going to find what they need. They never will. And they can't help it. They can't help it. So everything's going to be making an adjustment here. It seems the experts think it's this year. I don't know if it's going to be this year or if they're going to keep jacking up the economy with fake money until we get past the election. And then if President Houseplant, if he somehow makes it to the election, they're going to blame it on him. And they'll replace him with Kamala. Or if he can't make it to the finish line, they'll put somebody in like Gavin Newsom. And then they'll say, well, the economy was bad under Biden, but Gavin Newsom will fix it, and it'll still crash. Or Trump somehow manages to get in without them JFKing him, and then things will fall apart, and they'll blame the Republicans. That's what's going to happen. Write it down. Mark this on your calendar. Save this. Save this in your watch later tabs here on YouTube or Locals or whatever, Rumble. And then when it happens, you'll be like, yep, he called it, because that's what's going to happen. I guarantee you. Guys, if you like my work, join me on betterbachelor.locals.com. I'd really appreciate your support over there. I work hard. At least I feel I work hard. I hope you appreciate my work. And if you like keeping me independent and doing these projects and doing these videos until Rumble kind of gets their monetization and everything up to speed, I would appreciate it, because YouTube certainly isn't taking care of me anymore, that's for sure, because I think they started hating me a long time ago. So come on over, become a supporter today. I'd appreciate it. We'll see you in the next one.